First, I have to say that I'm not a fan of Nick Fuentes. My standard criticism of him remains that he is immature and that he's still learning, and that I think if there's one word for him, he's brash. Now, people point out that he's the future because, well, gee whiz, he's in his early 20s and there's a whole generation coming up that's in his age range, and they listen to him. He has significant influence. There's good influence and there's bad influence. So let's try it like that. So that has been my early opinion of him. It's changed a little bit since listening to this interview. Okay, I think he has a deeper understanding of a lot of issues than I give him credit for. I think he shows a capacity for insight and understanding that you don't hear very often, right? And it's the kind of insight where he is looking at a situation and he sees connections and he sees patterns that other people miss. I'm going to start with his commentary on Israel. All right, this is an ongoing problem. I have to point out that it's certainly my observation, the information sources I look at over the last couple of months, there's been this weird uptick in propaganda, basically on both sides, war in Israel and against Israel. So the events in Gaza can be said to be driving it. And, I'm on the fence here. When you start talking about atrocities, I think everybody's guilty in some fashion. So that said, though, to what extent and what way? And the information is certainly less than clear. All right. Now, stepping back for a minute, I also need to make clear where I am on Israel. Okay, I consider myself a friend of Israel. However, it's a troubled friendship, and there are things that need to be dealt with. Just like any friend, you have a person who has serious flaws. I think the problem is that for the people who are most responsible for taking care of Israel and keep it going as a nation have a very strong sense of history. And it's possible that they're leaning on that history just a little too much. Their sense of history is telling them, we could be on the verge of something where this anti Semitism can get out of control and it could be crystal knocked and it could be Nazi Germany all over again, but on a global scale. I think this is what probably concerns those people who are most responsible for messaging and giving an image of Israel. However, to those folks, I would say there's such a thing as overdoing it. Okay, there's such a thing as not having enough faith in those people who are still your friends in spite of these problems. An article idea that I was kicking around was is Israel trying too hard? And I think in some ways they may be. You've got some serious situations in front of you that you need to get a control over, Gaza being number one. But other things like annexing the West Bank, bad idea. Okay, you got to learn to listen to those people who want to support you, and those people who are going to draw the line on things that are clearly wrong in the larger picture. And I find it curious that here we have this pressure to annex the West Bank, even as supposedly Netanyahu is abandoning the Greater Israel Project. Who knows? Okay, nonetheless, Nick Fuentes sees these problems clearly. He told the story about how Ben Shapiro, early in Nick Fuentes' career, tried to crush him because Ben Shapiro perceived him as an anti-Semite. If I want to use Ben Shapiro as a model, there is this oversensitivity, overreaction to people who have, shall we say, critical opinions of Israel. I mean, the notion is you can do better. All right, we'll leave it at that. The other thing I want to move to here with Nick Fuentes was his commentary on relationships between men and women. I think that he, again, these are unpleasant truths and people don't like him, so of course they're going to turn around and attack him. But I think his comments about feminism and how women have abused feminism are spot on. I would say the part that I remember the best in that interview was how women, a lot of women, not all women, those women who are the loudest proponents of and speak up the most for what they think of as feminism are also the ones who are least willing to face accountability on their own shortcomings.
You tell me, why aren't people married?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's the women. The women are extremely liberal. No one talks about that. They're increasingly they do, especially after the last election. There's a 45-point difference between men and women. The men are extremely conservative, increasingly. The women are extremely liberal.
What are they liberal on? What issues? Like, what does that mean, liberal?
Oh, they're very feminist.
Like, actually?
Extremely feminist, yes.
They don't believe that, do they?
I think they do.
Really?
Absolutely,
How could
yes.
you believe that?
What do we take from this? Hopefully, there would be a growing number of other women who look at their friends, their female friends, and say, you've really got to rethink where you are on this because you're creating problems for our society going forward, and you're not going to be happy either. I think Tucker Carlson also made the point that in his own travels, he's in his 50s, he has not met a single liberal woman who's in a happy marriage. They're all miserable. And all the women who are in happy marriages turn out to be conservative.
Of course, I think all women naturally want strong men.
Of course, obviously.
They naturally want a Chad. They want like a tall, buff guy. But I think they like the idea of none of them want to work either. None of them actually want to work.
No, that's what I'm saying. Of course. That's
right.
It's obviously true. It's always been true. Work outside the home.
Right.
It's a blight on the land. Let there be no mistake. And you're left with very curious features here. So we can talk about the influence of pornography in America, but it turns out that in what we'll call sexually repressed societies, those dominated by Islam, boy oh boy, is the role of pornography there out of control. In some issues, you could argue that it's worse than in America. So, this strikes at some very deep things, I think. I'm not sure that I'm going to get into them now. But, men, women, society, religious values, how they all impinge on each other around sexuality is not what I would call well thought out or resolved. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of, I'm going to say, confusion. Not that I have any answers. But Nick Fuentes, I think, understood this stuff clearly. And what it comes down to is that, a lot of individuals, both individual men and women, since women are now also supposedly big consumers of porn, are going to have to make personal decisions about how they're going to handle this. And my reaction would be, you're going to have to handle it like you'd handle any disease. Okay, maybe you cannot get rid of the disease, but you're going to have to somehow keep that disease under control and understand it for what it is, quite simply.